Hi, everyone, and welcome to the June 11th community call. And we are in our second community call for 2025. My name is Rosie Reyes, and I'm going to be your host today. This is a place for all contributors to connect about their contributions to Jupyter and anything related to the community. Um, I want to give a special welcome to any first time attendees to our community call. We want everyone to feel welcome, and we invite you to participate in our discussions, introduce yourself, and add items to future agendas. We will have this meeting recorded. It's being recorded currently so that it is posted to YouTube for the community to view. We do have a Jupyter Code of Conduct that you can read about. I will do my best to grab the link here and paste it in to the chat. It is in the agenda as well. We have a few people signed up to the on the agenda, but if you didn't sign up and you feel inspired to share after listening to a few of these talks, provided there is time, we will have a section of the call that will be off the record, and we will invite you to share with us there in that section. That will be at the end after we go through all of the items in the agenda. There's a section in the agenda that is for short reports. I do see there is one there, so that is really for any announcements that you want to share, but not necessarily maybe have a discussion. So keep an eye on that section, please, so that we can have you all informed about any updates that are shared there throughout the call. Yeah, so I guess I will say, Mike, I'm not sure if you would like to say something related to your update or. Um,
I can read it out for people watching that later without
okay.
access to the notes. So Jupyter Core version 5.8.1 has been released, and it includes a security patch, which the issue affects Windows users. Please do update. The advisory is linked in the notes, but I'm also pasting that in the chat right now. And otherwise, because I don't think anyone mentions that in the agenda items, I wanted to call out that Jupyter Lab 4.4 and Notebook 7.4 were released last month. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, for those updates. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I think that is the only item in the short report, so we can go on to the agenda items. So I think I'm actually first up on the agenda, and I have a short announcement. That announcement is just we do have a updated community call host guide, and we would like to ask that if any of you have time to please check that out. It has a few updates. Feel welcome to give some feedback on the guide, or even sign up for to host another one of the follow-up community calls that we will have in the future. Our next one is planned for August, and it would be in the last week of August. And we also have one more in mind sometime in December. So we do have a link where you could fill out a form to sign up. I will paste that in the chat. There it is. So yeah, if you're interested, please feel free to head on over there and fill out that questionnaire so we can reach out to you if you have any questions about it as well. And I'm not sure if you want to share.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Thank you for hosting this call and the last one. Definitely appreciate you getting that momentum going. I think the idea was that we would have different people in the community step up and lead these calls. Right now, they're once a quarter. Ideally, they would be once a month, but that is dependent on having additional hosts. And so over the last few months, Rocio, Martha, and I have updated the documentation with the idea that this would facilitate additional people fully understanding what's involved, and then making ourselves available to mentor additional new people who would like to host. So if you're interested, definitely click through to the form. We're going to be asking for interest, not only here, but in other places in the community. And hopefully The idea being that if we get enough people who are able to host, we can start doing these once a month instead of once a quarter. So.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so I added the link there, so please feel free to check that form out. And that is all for me. So I will give it up to Bradley Wojtek, who is up next in the agenda.
Thanks, let's go. Hi, everybody. My name is Brad Wojtek. I don't know most of you, so quick intro. I am a professor at UC San Diego and chair of the Department of Cognitive Science. And I am also the program chair for this year's JupyterCon, which is going to be held here in San Diego in November. At a beautiful location, actually. Like one of my good friends got married there a couple of years ago. And so when I saw that that was where it's being hosted, that was kind of a kicker for me to agree to participate. And I put my email in the chat, but I'm just here to partly say we could definitely use all of your help in promoting this event. And so I'll put the link to the actual call for proposals, which is open right now. I'll put that also in the link in the chat. And right now it's actually looking pretty good. I think we've got approximately 50 proposals submitted already. Proposals close next month. We've got a great host of folks that have helped put this event together and are helping organize it on the various voluntary committees. I have never been to JupyterCon, so this is one of those situations where I'm kind of trying to help the team build the plane while flying it. So I'm a big processes guy, and so trying to put together a lot of documentation about how to organize the event so that future program chairs have a lot to build off of. There's quite a bit of materials for the call for proposals and website design, all that kind of stuff from before that I was able to leverage. But in terms of like how to build the different committees, what the different committee scopes are, and so on, that's been a decent amount of work, but kind of fun. So anyway, I have another call at 9:15. I had 7 minutes on the agenda, but everything got started a little bit late. So I'll stop here and say, if anybody has any questions or anything, definitely feel free to email. Pretty easy to get a hold of. But if anybody has any burning questions, I'm happy to answer them right now.
Do you have anything that you would request from this group other than amplifying the message right now, Brad?
We're pretty good on volunteers for the different committees. All of our committees are full. If anybody has a really burning desire to join the program committee and help review call for proposals, I guess we could fit one more. So please feel free to email me on that. But really right now it's amplification and sponsors. If people have folks that in their broader network might be willing to sponsor, there's different tiers. And I guess one of my biggest concerns is making sure that there's a breadth of a diversity of sort of perspectives and industries represented. I don't want this to be dominated by industry, data science, and AI. I would very much like there to be the mix of nonprofits and universities and academics and so on. So please do amplify in those networks as well. If you have colleagues and friends in the nonprofit and academic space, please do let them know about the conference. Kirsty?
You actually kind of got there really close to the end of that previous answer. I put my hand up to have you, we've talked about this a little bit just one-to-one, but have us just think a little bit about who JupyterCon is for, because I think that's one of the things that's kind of always a little bit confusing with JupyterCon. I know you have to go in 1 minute. Do you want to speak, or I can also answer my own question? If you
That's a little bit of a cheat because Kirsty is chairing one of the committees that's specifically focused on this. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like saying who's Python for, right? It's really like it's not really for anybody in particular, right? It's the users, and so I don't want this to be, I guess, one way of putting this is I don't want this just to be for people who have contributed to the Jupyter ecosystem directly, right? This is something that is for people who may not already feel like they're part of the community, or maybe even not know how to become part of the community. I would like to really reach out to those folks because it's such a heavily used ecosystem across industries that I think that being able to bridge that gap between the core community and the much, much deeper under the surface of the water iceberg of the users is something that's really important. Myself being one of those people. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it's so short. But like I said, please do feel free to email me, and I'm happy to chat. Hop on a Zoom one-on-one or in a small group or something if people have more questions. But yeah, thank you for having me briefly, and good luck with the rest of the meeting. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Bradley. Nice to
Yeah,
meet you.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Up next, we have Anna.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So excited to share some news about Jupyter workshops. Since 2018, I'm putting a link here to a spot on our website. Since 2018, Jupyter has hosted a series of local and regional workshops. Initially, they were called Jupyter Days. Then we called them Jupyter Community Workshops. And I think we've continued wordsmithing, and this next iteration will be called the Jupyter Workshops. We have some funding for which we'll be seeking proposals from the Jupyter Union of Councils. We'll be seeking proposals from that group for workshops in the coming year. I would expect an official announcement to come on our blog in the next 3 weeks. We're working with Deb Giles from the Linux Foundation. I think I saw her on the call. Yes, she's on the call. We're working with Deb Giles from the Linux Foundation to get materials out to the community and a place for you to send in proposals. I see there's a couple people on the call, actually. Serena hosted a very successful Jupyter community workshop. I don't even remember what year that was. Now it feels like ages ago. Yes, hi, Serena. I'm sorry I missed you when I was in Berkeley, but it's good to see you here. What year was your workshop?
It was supposed to be in 2020, and then there was the pandemic. And
Yes.
so we actually did it in 2022, so 2 years ago. Actually, these days, I think it was from the 9th to 11th of June or something like that.
Yes, yes. And so Serena was able to build, I think, a lot of momentum in what she was trying to do through that workshop. So we are definitely looking for people who are interested in hosting a Jupyter event in their community. I don't have exact details on when the CFP will launch. I do expect it to be the very end of this month, though, no later than early July. And the link that I provided is essentially towards workshops that we've hosted in the past, but I would encourage people to really think about strategic work that would benefit from an in-person gathering, and strategic work on Jupyter that would really benefit from in-person gatherings. Over the years, the community has really benefited by gathering in person. And so I think if there's any questions at this point, I can take those. Jason, if there's anything that you want to add, happy to have you jump in on the conversation. Part of the reason why this workshop funding is being prioritized is a result of a survey that we did of the Jupyter sub-projects. This funding for events like this was one of the things that came out of that of those in-depth interviews that we conducted with the community. So we're happy to launch this out. I don't know if there's any other details that we want to provide. This was the work. I do want to give credit to Jason Grout and Martha Cryan for helping to create the proposal that secured this funding so that we can launch this series in the community. And if there aren't any questions, that is it.
Anna, you said that the call is likely to go live by the end of the month. Do you know when the deadline might be?
I don't have that info. I'm guessing it will be at least a month. I would say 4 to 6 weeks of a CFP is likely to materialize.
Okay. Thanks, Anna, for the update. Up next, we have Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Fisher. If you don't recognize me, I'm a community manager and research software engineer at Schmidt Center for Data Science and Environment. And I'm working on a project called GeoJupyter, which I'd like to give you some updates on. You can check out GeoJupyter at geojupyter.org. And if you're not familiar, the aim of the project, the general mission, is to enable more people to confidently engage with geospatial data in the Jupyter ecosystem. Our major project right now is called Jupyter GIS, led by the folks at QuantStack. Thanks to the QuantStack folks on the call. Y'all are awesome. If you want to try that out, there's a link here in the document. You can click and try it out with Jupyter Lite, which is another awesome project by the QuantStack folks. We're on the Jupyter Zulip. We have a GeoJupyter channel there, which you can, again, join from a link in the document. We have a community calendar. We've got bi-weekly hackathons and monthly community meetings that we'd love to see y'all at if you're interested in our mission. Again, community calendar linked in the document or geojupyter.org/calendar. Some of the work we have going on in progress right now is a stack browser, which is currently a work in progress to enable you to add layers to this Jupyter first GIS environment from stack catalogs. We're also working on a team compass with an eye to eventually trying to become an official sub-project. That's a work in progress at compass.geojupyter.org. We're starting to plan a summer hackathon in the Berkeley area. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not for sure yet, but we will be announcing that in our Zulip when we do finally figure it out. We've got some plans for AGU 2025 in December. We're going to have a full day workshop. We've also, well, that also depends on us, our proposal being accepted, but we've also proposed a session and a town hall for AGU, both focused around Jupyter related tools and GeoJupyter, specific focus on GeoJupyter and MIST. We're planning to attend JupyterCon, and we're looking for community use case leads. So if you have a really specific use case for geospatial data in Jupyter that you feel like is kind of a gap and you'd like to help kind of be a representative for that use case, which includes helping guide the development and evaluating when we've actually met that need, we'd love to talk to you about that. So please just go ahead and give me a ping on Zulip if you're interested in leading a use case. I think that's all I got. If there's time left, happy to answer questions.
Yes, we do have some time. So if anyone has any questions for Matt, give it a few seconds to raise your hand.
I just wanted to say that this is really, really cool to see. I don't know very much about GIS or ArcGIS, but this is it's just remarkable to see here. I guess my question is like how how could I get more into this if I don't have experience uh, with GIS software?
It's a good question. If you've got experience with TypeScript and Python programming, your help would absolutely be very welcome. We've got some folks in the community who are helping out with guiding the GIS aspects of development, and a lot of things that need to be implemented that are pretty clearly defined. So jump in on Zulip, post in our welcome thread. That would be awesome. Reach out to me directly. Check out our issue backlog. But again, any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. That's a big part of my job, is engaging with the community. So I'd love to talk to you more.
Awesome. Thank you.
Kirsty.
Yeah, I'm doing another kind of like I did with Brad, because I also work at UC Berkeley, and so I work with Matt. But I was wondering, Matt, if you would just tell this group a little bit about like the pain point that people currently have with how they do geospatial analyses. Like, one of the things that you've been doing is a lot of user interviews, and essentially it's incredibly painful at the moment. And so this is the need for GeoJupyter. And I think some folks on here would really actually appreciate understanding, because I think what we're trying to do is super in line with the vision for Jupyter that's always been. So sorry for sort of kind of again answering my own question, but you can give the proper answer, and I think folks would really like to hear it.
That's great context to add. Thank you. So a couple things that we pointed out and identified through that kind of user-centric design process is a lot of people switch between their programming environment and their point-and-click GIS environment. So they might be working in a notebook and realize that they need to validate their analysis by seeing it visually on a map, but they don't have comfort with all the visualization tools in Python. So they'll take their data, write it out to a file. If they're working in the cloud, they'll download it, and then they'll go open it in QGIS or ArcGIS, validate it, and then they'll come back. Sometimes they'll do other processes in QGIS and ArcGIS that they're not like quite comfortable doing in Python yet. And that like linkage between the two systems is not great yet. So we've written a blog post about that first example, where you kind of like jump back and forth to check your work, and we called that the GIS bounce. I'll link that blog post in the document in just a second. And then the other bit is QGIS and ArcGIS also have processing functions. And you run those in the GUI by pointing and clicking, but if you want to reproduce them later, you're kind of out of luck. So we're thinking about how we link the processing functions we're implementing in this Jupyter Lab extension in a way that you can kind of export those to your notebook and still run your notebook top to bottom and reproduce those actions.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And thank you for the questions as well, and Matt for answering those. I see a lot of nice links, so hopefully people get a chance to check those out. And up next we have Christy.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Kirsty. I've been associated with Jupyter for a little while because I founded a project called The Turing Way, which is a Jupyter book. And we also were part of the Binder Federation a few years ago. And I have been working closely with the Jupyter Hub team on delivering a DEI, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion grant that was funded from the Essential Open Source Software Science funding from Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, all of the acronyms in all of the land. So Chris Holgraf is the PI on that grant. And we actually, one thing that is really interesting to share is that the original vision for the grant was run for 1 year, and it turned out to probably not actually be the right plan for improving diversity, equity, and inclusion in Jupyter Hub. And so then there was a little bit of a pause where the team kind of thought, well, why would we continue to go down the same path if we, in a sense, like have learned something from the first year and we know that it's not right? And so we pivoted. And for the second year of funding, so it's a 2-year grant. And the second year of funding, we realized that there was a lot of work to be done to clarify roles and responsibilities at the leadership level of Jupyter Hub. And one of the points that kind of came out from the discussions is people are a little overly humble, and as a result struggle to kind of put their hand up and say, I will do XYZ. So there's lots of other factors of everyone, people being busy, and it's a complex project to learn how to navigate. But actually one of the key points was that aspect of people not necessarily feeling, in a sense, like the opposite of humble is like arrogant or confident enough to be able to participate, then we sort of recognize that that was a challenge. So we've been partnering with Organizational Mycology, which is a co-op supporting collaborative leadership, I think always in open spaces. They've done a lot of interviews. They're ethnographers, or two of the team are ethnographers, and they have interviewed a lot of members of the Jupyter Hub community. They've written up a draft report called The Voices of Jupyter Hub. And then last week we got together at UC Berkeley and brought people together for 2 days. We sort of like literally locked us all in a room together and went through some celebration topics, some topics of really kind of recognizing how positive the impact of Jupyter and Jupyter Hub has been in data science and in education, but also recognizing that there were some difficult points that we also had to dig through. So those will come out in the final version of the Voices of Jupyter Hub report. So I'm not sharing the report right now because what we had was a sort of a draft that allowed us to come together, and there will be group reflections that are added to that report. So it's going to be a report that has good stuff, challenging stuff, and recommendations that we are all sort of committing to find a pathway forwards. But what I did very quickly want to do, because it was a big 2 days. It's really emotionally challenging to contribute to open source and to maintain open source software and engage in a distributed way. So it was wonderful to come together. Some of the stuff was challenging, and some of the stuff was really fun. And so what I want to do is quickly share my screen because we were asked to go away with pens and a piece of paper and draw Jupyter Hub. And I want to just show you a couple of those drawings because they were so fun. So hopefully I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully you can see a picture. I'm just going to look at Rocio yeah, I can see a nod. Okay, that's great. So Min is our sort of de facto leader for Jupyter Hub. He founded it, co-founded it a long time ago, and has been keeping everything going. And essentially Min said that the hub allows humans in their different ways to connect to computers with as minimal barriers as possible. So I really loved Min's people on this one. So that's why I picked that one to show you. This one was my one, and I thought I would just put it in here because I wanted to highlight, I'm not very good at drawing, but I wanted to highlight the sort of orchestration aspect, which came up a lot in our discussions, and thinking about how Jupyter Hub goes beyond just Jupyter, that we are sort of enabling people to communicate their research, to work in the environments that most make sense for them, to work on data that most make sense for them. And the last one on the right-hand side is some educational aspects, which Jupyter Hub is very regularly used for. This one is from Ariel, and what she lent into with her image was thinking about all of the different pathways to contribute and also to use Jupyter Hub. And she also, so the space in the background is kind of all of the different possible kind of things that you can do with Jupyter Hub. And we talked a lot about barriers to participation, and she decided to draw a hedge because it's not that there's no ways to go through these barriers, but they're harder. And so a lot of what we were talking about was trying to find ways to sort of funnel people to make it easier for them and clearer for them to see how they can participate in the ecosystem. And then lastly, these were amazing. And these came from UV. And he was thinking about having entries to Jupyter Hub, to both sort of as a contributor and as a user, that are customized to your needs. So maybe you're quite short, you go through the little door. Maybe you're quite tall, you go through the big door. And maybe you're a sentient bird person that we don't necessarily think about. And then you would want to be able to go in through the window. On the inside, he was also thinking about allowing people to access their data, access their computational environment in the way that works best for them. You might choose to sit down at your laptop. You might choose to stand at your tablet or your phone. And as a sentient bird person, I don't personally know exactly how you might connect with Jupyter Hub, but you would probably sit up on a shelf and you would have your own personal way of connecting in. And his dream is to make sure that that's accessible for everyone, including people that aren't currently represented leading the project. This is also him thinking about kind of how we look out for finding more people to participate in Jupyter Hub. And this is one where he was recognizing that we do have some challenges inside of the Jupyter Hub community. It's a little bit on fire. It's not a lot on fire. And so we were coming together to kind of think about how we work together in that space to make it a nice, sustainable, scalable community that works for all of the people that it could serve, not just the people that it currently does serve. So that's the end for me.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing that art with us. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions, we can have a few minutes. I'll give it a few seconds for any hands to go up, or Tony.
I really loved the folksy drawings. They were super awesome. Christy, I want to just ask for consent first. Can I make a critical statement from the outside?
Yeah, please do.
There are no disabled people in these drawings. So disabled people right now cannot use or get in the house in a lot of situations. So I think that the art's a great medium for including people who aren't included, so sentient bird person, but also wheelchair user, screen reader user, so on and so forth. I really loved it. I think, this accessibility thing's very important to me so I wanted to just advocate for it. But thank you for letting me.
Yeah, and maybe I should be clear. These were sort of creative. The purpose of the exercise was not really in a communication aspect. I kind of wanted to share that because I thought it was fun. It was more to actually look to see whether we all aligned on what Jupyter Hub is or is not. And so they're not really for external kind of sharing,
Sure.
even though I shared them here. And one of the difficult topics that we did talk about is the problems of accessibility in the Jupyter ecosystem. So in a sense, like maybe these images, maybe not, but the broader point absolutely did come up, and it is a challenge, and it is something that we need to continue to improve.
Yeah, it's hard to represent disabled folks when you want to, but you're unsure how. So I'm really glad that you guys were able to talk about that. And I was more kind of critiquing, just what I saw from the medium as a whole. It's really hard. We want to help people, but the question of how do we make accessible doors for folks is a challenge. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy, and thanks, Johnny, for the question. We will go on to our next presenter, and that is Miriam. I hope I said that right.
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Miriam Voreth. Since many of you might not know me, and I don't know many of the people, although I know some, I serve as a Chief Health Technology Officer at Berkeley Institute for Data Science. My work sort of lives at the intersection of data science, AI, and healthcare, developing data-driven algorithm in a clinical settings and working on open interoperable platforms that translate our clinical research into the real world scenarios. My background is in biomedical imaging and signal processing. I have a PhD in bioengineering from Berkeley and UCSF. Over the years, I've led interdisciplinary teams and sort of co-founded initiatives like Innovate for Health to support the data-driven innovation in healthcare, sort of partnering with universities, national labs, and industry. And right now, I'm sort of focused on building a community and scaling Jupyter Health, which is I'm excited to introduce to you here today. I'm especially excited about how open infrastructure can shift the culture of healthcare innovation, sort of making it more collaborative, trustworthy, and effective. Jupyter Health is sort of an open modular platform that's designed to integrate health data workflows into the Jupyter ecosystem and to bring the power of a Jupyter into healthcare applications. So it's like a two-way thing. And it's relatively new, officially recognized as a sub-project of a Jupyter Hub. Since the time is really short, let me start with giving you the motivation behind it rather than getting into the technical gritty-nitty of it. So in health and clinical research, sort of data is everywhere. Wearable apps, clinical trials, EHR for people who don't know, electronic health records. But turning those data into insightful, usable, and trustworthy workflow is incredibly hard. And when we sort of do make sense of the data as a researcher, actually bringing it into the real world clinical setting, into the hand of the provider, clinicians, and patients is where almost everything usually breaks down. And there is the other piece of it, which is the collaboration, researchers, developer, clinicians, and even policymaker, they sort of all have to need to be part of this process for it to be successful. And that's sort of the hardest part of it all because they all live in their own sort of world and silos. So the Jupyter Health has sort of been our response to this complexity. And our vision is sort of to empower clinicians with the decision support tools, researchers with sort of a scalable infrastructure and tools so they can do their work, and sort of patients with personalized insights. We're not really trying to build everything ourselves, and we don't want to. This is why this is an open source project. And instead, we're sort of building or bundling, it's a better way. So we're bundling together sort of an open, tried and true technology and building shared infrastructure and creating a foundation that others can build on top of. You can sort of think about it as a horizontal layer that sort of supports real world health use cases as verticals. So there's the infrastructure we're building, and the verticals would be all different sort of healthcare application. And we're doing all of that while sort of ground our effort to be using sort of open practices and a standard. So we're stitching together a lot of things like module. So we're doing sort of bringing or stitching together modular pieces for data acquisition, data management, and data analysis. And perhaps even the EHR integration, so we can be able to integrate this into the workflow of the clinicians. We're doing this by sort of extending what already exists in a Jupyter ecosystem, like Jupyter Hub, Jupyter Notebook, Vala dashboards, Jupyter AI, everything that is there. And we're combining it with components from other open source projects in a health data space. For example, we're working with Common Health, which is an Android-based tools for accessing and sharing clinical records. We work with Google Health Connect, which sort of let us ingest a wide range of variables and fitness nutrition data into a secure and a standardized way. On iOS side, we're sort of collaborating with another open source project, Spizzy, which is a modular framework that sort of makes it a lot easier to build custom health apps that collects a structured data for research and clinical workflow. So these tools, those existing tools, sort of led us to focus on stitching and not reinventing, which is really I guess, the model around open source, because you don't really want to keep reinventing the tool. You just want to use all of the existing tool and putting it together and build a workflow that a researcher or clinicians or developer can use. And we sort of wrap all of these things in a clean APIs and share a standards and reusable pipeline that others can kind of come and build on top of it. We want this platform to be flexible. So, people can come in and they can plug in new sources of data, new use cases. And as our communities grows, we really want to be able to address everybody's need. This is a relatively new project. We started by focusing on a specific and impactful area around wearable data, like continuous glucose monitoring, and for diabetes patients, blood pressure monitoring for hypertension. And we have some working demos that shows this full data flows, like bringing your CGM data or your blood pressure data all the way into your what perhaps many people here are familiar with, into the Jupyter notebook, and be able to build like dashboard and things on the data that you have. We're doing that all the way from ingestion to consent to pipeline assembly and visualization analysis. So we're really building the entire digital health sort of ecosystem. So if you're working on a digital health or interested in using Jupyter for real world clinical application, I would love to for you to explore what we're building. I've included the link to the Jupyter Health website. There's also our link to our GitHub. And please explore it. And better yet, if you love to build with us, please reach out to us, because we really have put just a bare minimum infrastructure end to end. And we're really wanting to bring the community in and figuring out what people are going to use this for, and how it can be used, and sort of build more pieces together. And and we're hoping to put some sort of a session together for also a JupyterCon to provide that to the bigger community. And maybe I know there was a question in terms of like what kind of when Matt was talking about GeoJupyter, which is I'm sort of part of it as well. It's like who needs to be involved. Again, this is a very interdisciplinary project, so you don't have to be a healthcare clinician provider. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have you can almost be an art major and being really good with visualization, and we can share you the data, and we can figure out how we can make our data visually sort of understand, visually attractive to the clinician. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get involved in this project, because again, as a patient, if you are as a person who's perhaps really interested to know what all of those variables that you have, your Aura rings, for example, what kind of data it brings and how do you analyze it, you can get involved. So yeah, we're really trying to be very inclusive and hearing from all different type of stakeholders. That would be the data generator, the data consumers, the data analytics. So in anywhere that you fall into, please reach out to us, because there's a room for you, and your voice is really valuable to make a tool like this accessible and usable for a lot of people. And our health is very important, and there's a lot that we can do in that space. Yeah. And with that, I pass it back to people.
Thanks, Miriam. I see a comment from Mike, so in the chat, so please feel free to take a look. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to ask for discussions in the chat, and then I will pass it over to Tony, who's our next speaker.
Oh, there we go. Need the audio, huh? Very, very cool. I really like the idea of being able to include artists in this process. There's quite a bit to learn from their experiences. So we should be seeing a notebook. Is that happening? Radical. All right. Let me get into Zen mode here. It's kind of the way I present now. Man, in the past, we would have seen like 3 or 4 notebooks by now. So I feel like I'm dressed for a different party. But anyway, I'm going to share this weird notebook. And I'm going to talk about a bunch of my experiments in using notebooks as a medium for video. So I've always taken a very broad, like outsider perspective on the notebook. I see it as a tool for art and science and literature. But also too, I have this really fluid concept of physical notebooks for drawing and calligraphy, and computational notebooks. So I try and like achieve the same quality of emotion or feeling working in both. For me, I'm curious about like how we get notebook, since notebooks are like a new media, how do we stop getting them to do the work of the old and do the work of the new? So I'm kind of starting off with this like connection here between skate parks and Jupyter Lab. This was something that Nick and I talked about in a presentation years ago. This juxtaposition of the two and being able to do tricks and have fun and build community, I see a lot of parallels there. But what I've been really interested by recently is this concept of hyper film. And when Ted Nelson presented the concept of hypertext and hypermedia in his 1960 paper, the paragraph afterwards had this concept of hyperfilm, which is something we haven't heard yet, but we're really seeing a proliferation of film in the world and in media. So I can start to understand it a little bit more, but I don't understand stuff until I start playing with it. So there's this really cool Werner Herzog documentary with Ted Nelson, and it's just absolutely delightful to hear him talk about a file system like water, because he comes from a filmmaker perspective, but he's also a computer scientist. Rest in peace, bro. But one of the big inspirations for this is a project called Oriole. So let's see, 9 years ago, 9 years ago, Paco Nathan talked about a program that O'Reilly was doing where they basically synced up notebooks and film and video. You could play code that Peter Norvig wrote. And Fernando said, in Oriole, we get the complete integration of video synchronized with the flow of text. That's something to explore there. At the end, we actually learned some like early prescriptions for writing and making notebooks that are good for video. Focusing on units of thought, like scoping things is very important. Restart and run all. That has influenced me since I saw this talk. If it doesn't restart and run all, GTFO. So I personally find from like the outside and the some of the situations I find myself in, like presentations and conferences right now are fairly inequitable. Like some people can't afford it, some people can't travel, it's not safe, it's not accessible, there's uncertain risks, some people can't expend the time or the spoons to do this. So I really think that video sort of liberates some of this and kind of makes the web a stage. And then it also makes the in-person presentation more important, right? It's like seeing the band after you've been listening to it. So I really think that streaming and presenting can liberate ideas. And this actually is not a new thing. There's a paper about film. It's called In Defense of the Poor Image. And it talks about the poor image being uploaded, downloaded, shared, reformatted, re-edited, transformed into accessibility and exhibition, having value in film and clips and all this like media mashing, basically. It sounds like cassettes and mixtapes and skateboard videos. And I really think that there's something to learn from those cultures. So, I started thinking about like, what can we learn from like old modern art? How can we practice art in the notebook sort of thoughtfully? This is an old Duchamp video that plays at the MoMA, but it's just simple circles. But, like a few simple circles that you can stare at for minutes is kind of these letters are on a wheel. It's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyway, so this digital video concept is like critical in digital cultures. Having presentations and few digital interactions makes it hard to have the digital culture. So being able to make video has propelled skateboarding, BMX, voguing, rollerblading, roller skating, calligraphy. Like calligraphy used to be a static thing, but now you can watch somebody do it and it's so calming and beautiful. And what it really is talking about is the work around the work has made these things accessible. It's not about doing it right, it's about the style and how you do it. So for me, from an accessibility perspective, I'm interested in exploring video and audio because they're multimodal elements. I can have multiple tracks in there, multiple kinds of text, multiple data about this thing, and it really helps me, and it really makes me think very hard about how to make this accessible. So the first thing that I want to talk about is a video of a notebook being made. So this is a stream I did with where we went from a blank notebook to an accessible heat map. There's a screen reader user on the call. I'm making MB convert things. I'm sending it to them by email. They're opening it up in the screen reader, telling me what they hear. And in an hour and a half, we actually had like an accessible solution. So that kind of feedback I never would have been able to have through text. From the concept of having a notebook already to making that video, a notebook in the hand is worth two in the bush. So what I mean by that is if you make a notebook and then you do a stream about that notebook, you're also making a notebook about that stream. So you're doing commentary, video commentary, which is really important work around the work for somebody to understand what's happening. So notebooks kind of multiply. This is one where I have a notebook, I make a stream, and I make a new notebook, but I also export a whole video version of this notebook with a screen reader running. And then some of the really weird stuff that I've been getting into is putting sorry, I don't know what I stopped thinking about time at this point. And just kind of go into quality. Oh, we're good. All right, great. Thanks, Rosio. So I wanted to kind of get to the end here, and this is the Palmer Penguin data set. And I wanted to explore. Let's see. Let's get to a little dancey. Yeah. So you know, the Palmer penguins. It's the less able or less controversial data set for PCA. I plotted them in some HTML, and then I put video elements there, and I thought it was really fun just to see what it would look like and how the colors would interact. Again, these are studies, but I've never looked at visualization so long. So that brings me to like notebooks as a, oh, let me show you the next one that I've done. This was an experiment I did yesterday where I took a study of some modern art, and then I started thinking, oh, well, what if I could, you know, put some video elements inside some circles, you know, like this is just like natural material now. And then what sort of happens, you know, it's like, I don't know, I think it's quite fun. It's an interesting mirror. So that was some new work. And at this point, I've done multiple streams. So this is like a practice. They're usually about an hour, hour and a half, 2.5 hours. You start to get tired. But again, it's a practice and it's sort of forward thinking. So all of these streams here, they have a notebook that comes out of them. And we are also start to see the value in having these videos ahead of time is that I can go and start stitching things together from other pieces and like taking static shots out of them. This is a skateboard magazine technique. When we had VHS early on, we'd go and fill up the page with like 12 or 16 shots. And now, you know, it becomes interesting and it starts to capture the process. So we can almost like do that in reverse. So I did some calligraphy in that one. This one here, I just listened to an article, listened to 2 essays, and did some drawing while it was happening. Again, all of these things are in the notebook, happening in the notebook. This is some data framework. So, you know, there's such a variety of topics that can be tackled in here. For me, especially, this notebook is a really good mirror. For me, it's like pictures and high resolution ones upset me. So this helps me like avoid a static perception of myself. It helps me experiment with like video being the most perceivable media type. Streaming and filming creates organic content. You know, a lot of people say it takes a long time to generate minutes of content, but if you're streaming and filming and you film and you do that for 3 hours, you have a 3-minute video. So, you know, persistence in this process is great. B-roll would be great for the culture. Building a backlog is more important than building viewers, and seeing yourself and practicing and improving. And one of the things I keep learning is like I really have to use MBConvert to export stuff in Jupyter for an accessible experience. I don't know if there's something to that actually as like a simpler way to interact. And lastly, my suggestion is for everybody, download OBS right now and start. You don't have to stream, maybe record a little bit, hear yourself, tolerate yourself, see yourself. It'll be a little bit, it'll be, for some people, it might feel better than others. But starting sooner than later and sharing with other people, I think is an opportunity to build a digital culture around these things that could uphold some of the more in-person and visible parts of the work.
Thanks so much, Tony. I think there's a question by Matt about where we can find your stream. So if you're willing to share maybe your channel, that would be great for us to follow up and look at some of your streams.
Yeah, I'll post that. So it's nice because OBS lets you stream to Twitch, which is where I put most of my stuff. And then it from Twitch, I go and archive everything on YouTube because Twitch only has a retention policy of like 2 weeks or something like that. But YouTube has a longer retention policy. So one of the other things that's important in this process is when you look at the videos on YouTube, they all have timestamps. So that means that you have to go back and watch it. Speeding it up helps a little bit so you don't hear your voice as acutely, but like going back and watching it and doing the timestamps is a very helpful process. But thank you for that question.
Thanks so much. I know we're over a few minutes, so if folks are willing to stick around, I appreciate that. Sorry about that, but our next speaker is Jeremy.
Right. Yeah, quick words. So I'm Jeremy, and I'm mostly involved in the Jupyter frontends and also in Jupyter Lite. And I wanted to share like a quick update on Jupyter Lite, and especially the new release, which is 0.6. And so usually Jupyter Lite follows like the release schedule of Jupyter Lab and Notebook. So that means that it's updated to Jupyter Lab 4.4 and Notebook 7.4. But this release comes with a couple of nice additions, I would say, that are Jupyter Lite specific. So let me see if I can demo like most of them in just a couple of minutes. So if you want to try it yourself, I think the easiest is to go to jupyter.org, click on try, and then click on Jupyter Lab here. And then you have this notebook here. So it's a little bit of a, like we tell people it's Jupyter Lab, but in fact, it's a Jupyter Lab via Jupyter Lite. But it's super convenient to try stuff very quickly in the browser without having to wait for a server to be available. So here I have a quick notebook that I prepared very quickly earlier today, and I think the most requested feature of all time for Jupyter Lite has been the interactive input. So people couldn't do this before because of technical reasons to make it simple. But now it's possible. So if I do this, and then it also works with password. So if I type hidden, and then we have it here. You can also do like 2 in a row. So let's say I put 1 here. Oh wait. Yeah, 2, 3. I think I press Shift Enter. Yeah, and that you have them here. So yeah, this is thanks to the work of Ian, who did this for the Pilot kernel and also for the SUSE Python kernel. So next we have also improvements to the REPL, the thing that you can embed in websites. So here, for example, on numpy.org, there is like a small Jupyter Lite repo. So you can type some code and try and NumPy very quickly. This has been available for a very long time, but the new things are around the options that you can now actually put in the URL. So here in the docs, I copied the link. Let me see. Yeah, so now you can have more like parameters in the URL, like this soon stuff. So one thing that comes from Jupyter is the ability to move the prompt cell left, right, and so on. But then in the URL, you could put something like right, and then you can share that with someone. So actually, if you use Notion, I realized that if you want to publish a quick, kind of notebook-like website very easily, you can publish a document here as a static website, and you can embed this kind of. Let me see. I think it's embed. Yeah. So if I paste this link here, embed shows up very quickly here. And just save, and then refresh the site, and the new one is there. So yeah, it's very convenient to have just a repo somewhere, especially now that there's like support for widgets and so and more. But then there are a couple of other quality of life improvements, I would say in Jupyter Lite. So before, so it's hard to tell, but this piece of code here makes the kernel crash. So before you will run this, but then you wouldn't know like really what is happening. So now if you do this, there is this little icon here. It's like a red cross, but there is also at the bottom left, like this long console icon that flashes. So if I click on one of the two, there is the error that is reported there, which is much nicer for end users because then they don't have to open the DevTools. And if you switch to info here, now we need to restart the kernel because it's unusable anymore. There are other logs that may be logged depending on the kernel that you're using. So here's Biodide reporting the packages being loaded. There is also loading indicators, so it's the same thing, like a small quality of life improvement. But so let me do a quick slowdown, like artificial slowdown to show you. So if I refresh the page, now there is this kind of spinner here that at least shows something to the user, because otherwise it would be just looking at a blank page, and that was confusing to some people. Okay, so the settings import export, this one comes from JupyterLab and JupyterLab directly. So there are two buttons here. I'm not going to do a demo, but the idea is that you can open a Jupyter Lite, for example, this one. You can make some changes, and then you can export to a file. And what is nice is that file, you can then put it in the Jupyter Lite deployment, and then it will have like the settings overrides that you want to also have available by default to other users. We also added the plugin manager. It's more for advanced users, I would say, but it's always nice to know what you have, in a deployment for sometimes debugging. And yeah, let me see. Yeah, the last one was also requested for a very long time. It's the ability to clear the browser data. So if you change the dark to the dark theme here, but then let's say you would like to remove everything you have in browser. So by default, Jupyter Lite stores the settings. So for example, the theme in the browser, but also like notebooks here. So if I create a new one, this one actually ends up in your browser. But people were like asking for a way to remove it. So now there is this clear browser data. You can choose if you only want to clear the settings or the files, but let's keep the two. Reload the page, and now I think it's kind of back to normal. So yeah, I think I'm over the 5 minutes, but I just wanted to also show this little icon here. I think it's new from today. So it's still Jupyter Lite, but now you have something that behaves a little bit like a terminal. The fun thing is you can even use Vim. So again, like I think this try Jupyter, the main idea at the beginning was to kind of remove the load on mybinder.org, but let people try Jupyter directly in the browser. So the terminal is also another step towards this. So that's again thanks to the work by Ian. And yeah, I think I have a couple more things, but we're out of time. Maybe next time I can do a quick demo of how we can have both in browser and the regular kernels in the same Jupyter lab. So yeah, I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. And yeah, it would be great to get another demo sent for the next call. So hopefully also with more hosts, we could have those more often and hear all about the work everyone is doing. I was on the agenda as well. So I was going to be the next speaker. I think I'll just give a short, really brief update. And it was going to be short anyway, but I'll make it shorter. And that is that myself, David Q with Jupyter AI, and then Eric Sundel with Jupyter Hub, we did a security training. And without going into too much detail about like the training itself, I did want to share that it was a training that went over some few topics like hardening security, hardening secure GitHub actions, and also threat modeling, as well as some modern security tools like using CodeQL and Copilot. And yeah, so it was a training that gave us a lot of resources and hands-on learning as well. So I'm going to be sharing some links in the agenda shortly with everyone. There are some blogs and some guides that have some ideas for like the things that we want to tackle first in terms of security, things like the OpenSSF scorecard, and then the secure dev programming guide, or secure dev guide, sorry. So yeah, if you are interested in hearing more about that, please do join us. We have a call in the Jupyter, a biweekly open call for Jupyter security. So I will also share a link to the community calendar so where you can find those. And that is all for me. I believe that's all for the agenda as well. So we are a bit over time, but thank you everyone for sticking around. We'll close this off by saying thank you to all like the presenters and all the attendees today here. It's really great to have you here and to be able to hear about the work that people are doing in Jupyter. Hopefully we get to keep these going. Thanks, Anna and Martha, for the help in putting this together as well. And of course, if you have any feedback, there, I think it's a link in the agenda for the discourse post where you can provide some of that feedback. And yeah, and please keep in mind that our next call is in late August. So keep an eye out on the different channels like Zulip and Discourse and other social media posts that will announce the call for and call for signups. So yeah, I think that we can go ahead and end the recording if there is. Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and Chris here, stop the recording.